Hi, welcome to the Vermont Child Welfare Training Partnership Foundations Network makeup session for our introduction and overview. You're seeing this video because you were unable to join us for the first class. And so you'll be viewing this makeup session, and then we'll see you in the Zoom sessions for the rest of the modules. In today's agenda, we are going to do introductions. We'll do an overview of Foundations Learning Network. We'll review the concepts of RPC Plus and a trauma lens. We're going to introduce the concept of mindfulness as a daily tool. We're going to talk about the concept of group agreements, go over your welcome letters for welcoming a child or youth into your home. We're going to give some time for some tech support, and then we will say goodbye and close so we can prep for the next session. So right now we Carmina and I are going to introduce ourselves, and let me just close this out so you can see us. Great. Why don't you go first, Carmina?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Carmina. I am a regional trainer for the University of Vermont Child Welfare Training Partnership. I've been doing that since 2015, teaching Foundations Learning Networks and some other classes as well. I'm also a fictive kinship caregiver to 2 youth and have been doing that on and off for quite some time as well. I also work for the state of Vermont as a foster caregiver recruitment and retention specialist. So again, wearing a lot of hats coming into this work. But today I will be co-leading this with Sharon, and I'm really glad to be here.
Great. Thanks, Carmina. I'm Sharon O'Neill. I am a training and coaching specialist with the Vermont Child Welfare Training Partnership. And our role at the Vermont Child Welfare Training Partnership is we do training and support for kinship, foster, and adoptive families and for new family service workers. And so we design and present the curricula that you take in order to be a licensed kinship or foster caregiver. So when we do introductions in class, we ask everybody their name, whether you're a kin or foster caregiver, who lives in your home, and tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a kinship or foster parent. We'll make sure, like I said, we'll make sure that you can introduce yourself in the next session and that your other participants can introduce them too. But I do want to note that it might not be as deep a dive into the introductions because of time. But don't worry about that. We're going to have a lot of time in each of the sessions to learn more about each other. But do think about what you want to share with your other participants. So for an overview of Foundations Learning Networks, you've already taken Foundations Online, and when you completed Foundations Online, it led you to Foundations Learning Network. This course consists of this introductory session, and then you're going to have a week of online coursework that is about an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of work, and then that will be followed by a virtual Zoom session. You need to complete all of the coursework in order to get the link for the Zoom session. And so your instructors will reach out to you to make sure you're in line to complete the coursework. But if you have any barriers or hurdles about completing the coursework, please let your instructors know. You'll get all of that contact information prior to your class starting. So there are 3 weeks of online coursework and then 3 virtual Zoom sessions. The objectives for this course are that we're going to prepare your home to welcome youth safely and warmly. We will use mindfulness and trauma-informed parenting skills. You'll learn how to build partnerships with children and youth and their families. You'll understand the impacts of kinship and foster care. You'll use self-regulation and co-regulation skills. And finally, recognize cultural influences and navigate challenges that may arise. These are the objectives that we shoot for, and we have a lot of curricula to cover, but we also have plenty of time for you to engage and ask questions. This is your first opportunity to come together in your training, to come together with other kinship and foster parents. And so we don't want to call you together and then not give you an opportunity to engage.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about RPC Plus using a trauma lens and also coaching. So I don't know if anyone has heard about RPC Plus or already taken that class, but it stands for Resource Parent Curriculum. A resource parent is another name for a kinship, foster, or adoptive parent or caregiver. And the plus is for TIPS and stands for Trauma-Informed Parenting Skills. So RPC Plus Tips for tuning in is a 10-week-long workshop that teaches foster, adoptive, and kin caregivers about the impact of trauma on the development, attachment, emotions, and behaviors of the children and youth in your care. The workshop provides a safe space for caregivers to access compassionate training, learn concrete strategies to manage daily and ongoing challenges, enhance relationships with their children, and build a network of support with fellow caregivers. We will be using some of the concepts from RPC Plus in our Foundations Learning Networks course, and we strongly encourage you to take RPC Plus in the future. I've taken it, I've taught it, I've had foster caregivers who have taken it a couple of times because they found it so valuable and useful. And also, as a foster caregiver, you have the opportunity to do something that we call level up. And so, the longer you've been a caregiver, the more experience you have, and the more advanced trainings that you have, you can increase your level. So, it starts at a 0, you can go all the way up to a 3. And again, part of that is by taking advanced trainings and trainings outside of the required ones. But highly recommend the course after you've taken this or whenever it works best for you. And feel free to ask if you have more questions about that. Next, we want to talk about the trauma lens. So the concept of the trauma lens is introduced in RPC Plus, and a trauma lens shifts your thinking from what is wrong with you when we're referring to our children instead to what happened to you when thinking about and responding to your child or youth's behavior. We will use this icon throughout this training to remind you to put your trauma lens on. So just be looking out for those glasses and just remember that, okay, I want to put on my trauma lens during this part. The second little icon that we have here with the two people is focusing on coaching. So the Vermont Child Welfare Training Partnership also provides group and individual coaching opportunities for kin, foster, and adoptive caregivers. And coaching is an opportunity to deepen your learning and help you plan and problem solve issues that may arise in your caregiving role. Your RC or RS may suggest that coaching may be a great option for you, and we want to make it really clear that this is not because they think you're not doing a good job. It truly is a tool and a resource for you to address some challenges that are happening, to ask questions, and to problem solve. So please keep that in mind that it's not a corrective measure. It's really as a resource and tool for you. Research shows that foster parents who get regular support and are more trauma-informed caregivers will continue in their caregiving role for longer, and it will help keep the child in your home and not disrupt placements. You will see this icon as mentioned, and so when it comes up, it means that this may be a good coaching topic. If you have any questions about RPC Plus, Trauma Lens, or coaching, feel free to reach out to your RC, your RRS, or to any of the trainers.
Yeah, another thing I want to mention too, Carmina, is that Foundations Learning Network, now there are 3 additional optional coaching sessions that follow. And the coaching sessions follow the same night, the same time as your class is. They're optional, but we do ask that you let your trainers know which weeks you are going to be attending. Hopefully you'll attend all of them. It will be an opportunity for you to continue to meet with the other foster parents that are on the same path as you. And it gives you an opportunity to ask questions and get additional support about content in the class that maybe we didn't have time to cover, or maybe you had questions or you tried some things that you learned in class, and now that you've been practicing this, you might want to deepen your learning even further. So that is available. for you after each class. And you'll learn more about that when in the subsequent classes that you have after this introductory session.
So now we want to talk about mindfulness. The number one tool that can help us shift into using a trauma lens and using the tools that we've gone over today and will continue to go over is mindfulness. So, as you learned in Foundations Online, mindfulness is awareness that arises when we pay attention to what is happening within us and around us in the present moment and without judgment. Mindfulness is a skill that can help us navigate life more smoothly. We can use various techniques to learn to be more mindful. Like building a muscle, we can practice being mindful and our ability will grow. So each week, we're going to share some ideas about mindfulness and some techniques so that you can build your mindfulness toolbox. Different techniques will resonate with different people. So we strongly encourage you to try things on and see what works for you and to leave the rest if there's something that doesn't work for you. So we're going to watch a short video and then practice a 1-minute mindfulness technique. We'll be using these techniques in each session of the training. And you can also use these techniques with the children or youth that you take care of. You can use it when you're at work, really anytime when you feel that you have a moment to do that or need to take a moment to do that. Mindfulness.
Carmina, I have not always been comfortable with the concept of mindfulness, like in my own personal life and when we decided to put this in the curricula. And so one thing that I have learned over time is, we're giving suggestions, right? If the suggestions we give don't work for you, think about other ways to use mindfulness because this is hard work and it's really important. Like sometimes you're just bopping from place to place to place. And sometimes I joke, but it's actually not funny. I'm like, oh, I really prepared for this, but I still feel like I was sliding in sideways. It's so important to like arrive, ground yourself so that you can be really ready for the focus that being a foster kinship caregiver requires of you. I don't know how you feel about it or if you use any mindfulness techniques. What do you think, Carmina?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said that, Sharon, because this comes up a lot during classes that we've had of people saying, this is not for me. I have no interest. It's not helpful. It makes my mind wander even more. So it's really about taking what works for you. And like I said before, leaving the rest. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the mindfulness techniques that you're using aren't going to happen in the ideal environment or your preferred environment. And so what I mean by that is I utilize deep breaths or box breathing, things like that. That's something that works really well for me and something I've used with my kids. And ideally, I would love to set up like a really cozy, cute yoga room and be on my mat and have low lights and maybe some calming music and practice deep breathing.
Mm-hmm.
That is not my reality. It was not my reality when I was raising my girls. And so typically for me, it meant taking a couple extra seconds or minutes in my car before I went into the house for the evening. So it was
Mm-hmm.
after work, I'm sitting in the driveway, my hands might be on the steering wheel still, and I'm just practicing that or setting my intention or whatever technique I've chosen in that moment. That's the time that I had to do that. And it helped ground me, as Sharon said, and prepare before I went into the house and, took care of the kids and did all of those responsibilities that I
Yeah.
needed to.
Yeah. And for me, like when I was still raising children, my children are adults now, but for me, it would be pulling into the driveway. And depending on what time of year it is, maybe it would be spending a couple time minutes in my garden before I went into the house, something that
Yeah.
provided a transition. And just last night, I was in an in-person Foundations Learning Network class, and one of the participants, a foster father, said, sometimes I come in and I just say to my family, like, I just need 10 minutes upstairs before I'm home for sure. And so just think about those things. But right now, we are going to show a video that is an example of mindfulness.
How much of your day is spent on autopilot, doing things without actually being aware that you're doing things? In the shower, do you feel the water splashing over your body? Or is your mind somewhere completely different? When you're eating, do you actually taste the food? Walking down the street, Do you see and hear what's going on around you? Or are you lost in your thoughts? So often we sleepwalk through our life on autopilot without being fully awake to what is actually happening. Mindfulness expert John Kabat-Zinn once said, "Mindfulness is being alive and knowing it." It's about noticing the small details of our experience, things we would normally rush past, connecting us with the raw experience of each moment as it happens. When we do this, life feels brighter and fresher.
Did you want to say anything else about mindfulness, Carmina, before we move on?
I don't think so. I just encourage everyone to take a deep breath and then we'll dive into the next section.
Mhm. Today, we're going to talk about why are group agreements important. We're not necessarily going to formulate our group agreements. The online portion of training that you're going to take this week is going to ask you to write in a journal, an online journal, what group agreements are important to you. But what we want to do is why are group agreements important? Group agreements create a framework for working in collaboration. They help to build trust and psychological safety. They help align a group on communication, decision making, and accountability. It prevents and reduces conflicts and ensures that everyone feels included and heard. And so think about what group agreements are important to you. Journal them in our first module Zoom session. We'll talk more about this. And I think for me, also, the creating psychological safety and ensures that everybody feels heard. I think for me that leads towards building community, and it's one of the great things that happens in these classes where we get to be with other people who are doing the same work as you are, as we are. And it's really amazing how, as you interact with each other under the guidance of group agreements, and by taking the chance to be vulnerable and share your information and being vulnerable to ask questions, that some real community building happens. And as a trainer, it's always really exciting to see. And I hope you have that experience too.
Okay, so now we want to talk about the welcome letters. So during your Foundations online coursework, you were asked to write a welcome letter for a child in your home. And later you watched a video of youth talking about how kin and foster parents could make them feel welcome. So we want you to look at that letter that you wrote, take it out now. If you don't happen to have it, just think about what you would like to put in that letter, what you would like to convey to a child or youth who is going to be coming into your home, and just take a second to think about that. And then we're going to focus on a couple of questions. So typically during the Zoom session, we would have you be in a breakout room or with a partner discussing this. And so for the purpose of this makeup video, Sharon and I are going to go over the questions and answer them ourselves and have a little bit of interaction.
Mm-hmm. If there's someone in your home or a good friend you could have this conversation with, we encourage you to do this also.
Yes.
So I think I'm going to put up the questions, Carmina, and then I'll stop screen sharing so we can have the conversation together. Okay.
Great. So the first question is, when you were young, who made you feel welcome and like you belonged? And what did they do that made you feel that way? The second question, what do you hope your letter conveys? And lastly, what are other ongoing ways you could help a child or youth feel welcome in your home? So,
Great questions.
Sharon, I'll have you answer the first question. So, when you were young, who made you feel welcome and like you belonged? And what did they do that helped you feel that way?
So who comes to mind immediately? Well, actually, my best friend's family. So I have a best friend who I still have today. We started being friends when we were 3 years old, and now we're both 60. And we have stayed in contact. And I loved her family. She had a big family. I grew up in a single parent family. She had, both her parents were married and there were 5 kids in their family. And her mom in particular, just, she just really, she helped me to feel like I was actually part of the family. She treated me the same as her other kids. She had little nicknames for me when I would tell her things that I was worried about. Like she called me Lovey, like all the things. And she also was a person who held me accountable for when my friend and I would argue. My friend, she held us accountable. She was like, this is not how people who love each other treat each other, when we're like, whoa, she took my Barbie. She just included me in a way that was really important to me. And I think that's also why my friend Susie and I have stayed friends all this year. And I'm friends with her sister too, and I visit them regularly. So I would say that was it. And she never, like, if I made a mistake or didn't understand something or, didn't do what I was supposed to, she never shamed me. She never made me feel like I was a bad kid or anything. And that wasn't always the experience I had in my home. So it was nice to have this kind of family. How about you? Did you want to share anything about that, or you want me to be the participant for today?
No, I can share a little bit. I actually had one example in my head, and then when you started sharing it made me think of another. So I'll touch on both
Good.
briefly. So right away, I thought of my elementary school teachers.
Mm,
I grew up in Vermont, went to a very, very, very small elementary school, very rural town. Everyone knows everyone. So there was a strong sense of community to begin with, but I do attribute a lot of that to my teachers in particular. They were just super kind. They didn't, pick one kid out or favorite anyone. Like they just were really, really kind, engaging, caring, fun.
mm,
They knew how to have fun, which was important and sticks out to me. And then they also brought up something, Sharon had shared this too, and it made me think of it. They held me accountable, and not just because they were my teacher, but there was this sense of, integrity matters. What you say and do matters. This is how it affects other people. And just always wanting to help create the best version of ourselves.
mm,
And they also made us feel safe. So you knew that you could go to them about anything. And yes, there might
mm.
be a natural consequence, but I knew that I could go and talk to them about literally
Yeah.
anything. And that was really important.
I love that you mentioned a teacher and also accountability. When you were talking, Carmina, I was thinking of, remember back when we used to do all classes in person? We
Yeah.
had a youth panel, and one of the foster parents in the group said, "Gosh, I'm just going to have a really hard time like holding the
Hmm.
children accountable that are in my home because they've had such a hard history and I feel really bad for them." And one of the older youth was like, "That's great because you know what's going to happen. I'm going to walk up one side of you and down the other and then come around
Yeah.
again. I'm like, I want you
Yeah.
have boundaries with me. I want you to hold me accountable." And
Mhm.
the foster parent was like, "Oh, okay." And the kid was like, "That's a good thing. I need that." And so, accountability is a big thing, even if it's uncomfortable at the time.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Great. All right. Well, let's move on to our second question, which is what do you hope your letter conveys?
I guess I would hope that my letter would convey that I know you're having a hard time, and I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy that we can support you and be here for you while your family figures out what they need to do so you can go home. I hope that 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 just because I say you feel safe and you can trust me, that I know you're not going to feel that, but I hope in time that will happen for you, and that it's okay for you to let me know what's okay and what's not okay. Because even though I might have been a foster parent for a long time, I've never been a foster parent to you. And so I don't know you. That's my hope.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really important and, making the situation unique, like you said, even if you've been doing this for a long time, you've never had this child in your home. I would want to convey very similar things, wanting to make sure that they knew I was there for them, that I wanted to get to know them, somehow sharing that they were in a safe space, even though, as Sharon said, they're not going to necessarily feel that or know that immediately, and that's okay, but maybe just like trying to bridge that a little bit in the letter. And also, if I was able to articulate it in a way that was, age and developmentally appropriate, acknowledging how awkward this situation is and that it can feel uncomfortable and that they don't need to come in as the best version of themselves or perfect or anything like that, but that we're going to figure this out together and try to make the best of it. And that really, it's not necessarily forever, but that I'm here for as long as that child needs me, wants me, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we move on, I just want to say, like, when you said the best version of themselves, like, I might not be either. Like, because I also am nervous. Like, I'm nervous about this. How's it, how's it going to work out for them? How's it going to work out for me and my family? I'm also unsure. So we're both going to be getting to know each other, and we're all both going to be getting comfortable with this along
Yeah.
with that. So,
Yep. Yeah. We're in the odd journey together.
yeah. So what are some other ways and ongoing ways that we could help a child or youth feel welcome?
Yeah, I think it would be taking an interest in their interests, making sure that you had food that they liked. I know that one thing that happens a lot when kids who come into custody come into a foster home, the foster caregiver wants to give them the most nutritious, healthy, tasty, best food and, really help them. And that may not be what they're used to eating, or they may only like a handful of foods at that time. And so just making sure that they have those foods on hand, that they know where they can get those, maybe having like a snack drawer that's just theirs. That's a really big way to make sure that
Yeah.
they are comfortable and secure and not worrying about food if that happens to be a worry. So that's one thing that I've done, or one thing that I would try to do to help them moving forward. What about you, Sharon?
I also think about, and we say this all the time, the kids are going to come into your home with things that maybe they got to pack with them, maybe somebody else packed the things with them. And, the things may not look appealing to me, right? They might smell different than my home smells. They might be a little dirty, a little raggy, a little something. And my best intentioned heart might be to, like, oh, I want to get you new things, right? But I think I just would ask everybody to remember that these are that child or youth special things, that remind them of their home, and their transition away from home is hard. And so I would think by accepting those things in the home would help them feel welcome. And I also think having conversations like, hey, in our family, this is how we eat dinner. What was it like for you? Or I'm making grilled cheese today. How do you like your grilled cheese? Do you like, is there a certain way you like the crust? Is there a certain way you like it cut? Just little things like that where where I can show curiosity about their life before they came to live with me.
Definitely. Thanks, Sharon.
Yep.
Something else that I want to note, because this question does come up or typically comes up when we're having these discussions live, is people are like, do I really need to write a letter? Like, what if I have a baby? What does that look like? So no, you are not required to write a letter to a child when they're coming into your home. However, we do this exercise so that you can start thinking about it and think of ways that you would want to welcome a child. And maybe a letter is the best way to do that, depending on their age, depending on where they're at developmentally, their comfortability level. I know a lot of caregivers who have utilized a journal, right? And so they have one spot in the house where they keep the journal, and it can go back and forth between the caregiver and the child, and they can write in it at any time. I know when I've had teens, we did a lot of texting, right? So they may not be ready to have a face-to-face conversation, But if it feels comfortable and if it's appropriate and if they have the technology, you might say like, hey, this is my phone number. You can text me at any time, day or night, and depending on what your household tech rules are as well. But maybe you're texting for a little bit, right? And they're not comfortable talking at the dinner table yet. And so those can be ways that you can have a letter, right, without actually doing the letter. And even with a baby, when you're holding them and taking care of them, you can verbally be saying what you hope for them and setting those intentions and telling them that you care about them and you want them to be safe and you're going to try to do those things. So those are a couple of alternatives to the letter. Sharon, I don't know if you have any other ideas or examples.
Well, not really. It's just something to just add a little bit. Like, and if it's a baby, and when you're sharing those intentions with them, that's also like your beginnings of making attachment and attunement. Making that eye contact and stuff like that. And if the baby responds to you at all, you can be like, yeah, like you understand what I'm saying. Like it's just whether they understand or not. Like you're setting an intention. And the other thing I wanted to say is whether you write a letter or not. If you write a letter, I find sometimes that writing a letter or doing some writing journaling helps me prep for the conversation. But you do you. You do what works best for you. Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So this exercise is very similar to what we're going to be doing in our Zoom sessions moving forward. We'll be talking about other topics. But before we, dive into anything else, we want to make sure that you are super supported when it comes to the technology for this class. And so I'm going to go over a couple of tech questions and answers that, again, commonly come up. And then I'm also going to share my screen and show you exactly where you need to go when you're in the online portal. I know you're already familiar with it because you've taken orientation and foundations online, but the setup is a little bit different than what you've seen before. And so we want to just make sure that you know exactly where you need to go and also who you need to contact should you have any difficulties. So I'm going to go over a couple of technical difficulty questions that might come up and to give you some tips for working on that. So first and foremost, we do not have 24/7 tech support. So we just want to put that out there that we know that you have to carve out time to do this, which we are greatly appreciative of. And it can be super frustrating to be in the middle of something and not be able to go forward. But unfortunately, that is the reality. We do not have 24/7 tech support. However, if you do run into some type of tech issue, you will want to email training portal at vermontcwtp.org. And when you send that email, we want you to send as many details as possible so that we can really try to get to it effectively. So you want to let us know what's happening, what are you stuck on, or what can't you get past, or maybe you can't post, whatever it is. Letting us know what training you're taking, so Foundations Learning Networks, because we do offer several other trainings, so this will help us narrow it down. Letting us know what module you're in, so 1, 2, or 3, and again, just being specific about what's happening. We'll want to have your first and last name, because we can't always tell by your email address who's sending us the email. So that will be really helpful and allow us to maybe do some behind the scenes things in the training portal. So that's what we are looking for in the email at that email address. And then we will get back to you within 48 hours. If for whatever reason you haven't heard from anyone in 48 hours, please email us again. You can also reach out to your trainers. That's totally fine. They just may not be able to answer the tech question or in as timely of a manner. So, but again, ask until you get someone. Something else that comes up is if you step away from the computer, please make sure to sign out. We do not have a feature that asks you if you're still there. And so it may look like you're moving forward in the training, but the information isn't getting captured. So just make sure that you're staying active with it. If you haven't been there for a period of time, sign out, log back in so that it is logging everything that you're doing with those trainings.
Can I just jump in for a
Oh,
second?
yeah, please.
I feel like that we have less tech issues than we used to because we've
Yes.
redesigned the technology behind the scenes.
Yes.
But that's the most frustrating thing because you'll be working, and if you stepped away, the program's still going to advance, right? To you, you won't notice anything different, but the portal did stop tracking. And
Yeah.
so when you sign out and then you sign back in and you're like, wait a minute, why am I
I
way
thought.
back here? I actually did this. Or why is my trainer calling me and saying I didn't finish the training for the virtual session when I actually did? That's why.
Yep. Yeah. So we don't want that to happen. We want you to get the credit. We don't want you to have to do it twice. So please make sure that you do that. And again, if something comes up, you're struggling, send an email to that email address. You can reach out to your trainers, and you can also utilize your RC or your RRS, and they might be able to help you troubleshoot as well. So again, just reaching out for help because we don't want you to get super frustrated. We don't want you to get stuck, and we want you to be able to complete this in a timely manner. So, with all of that said, I am going to share my screen so you can see exactly where you need to go when you are trying to navigate the modules. Okay. Let me just move this. Okay, so when you sign in, you will come to this homepage as you typically have done for your other courses. You'll see Foundations Learning Networks here, and it will give you instructions on how to select, which is what you already did. It gives you a little reminder about your introductory Zoom meeting, which is this one. It also lists your course objectives that Sharon went over today. And then also, if you haven't already opened and printed out your Foundations toolbox, you can do that right here. We will be utilizing and referring to your Foundations toolbox throughout the training. So that's just something to keep in mind. And there's another link for that right here as well.
And also, if you don't have access to a printer, you could ask your RC to print it for you, or
Yes.
Hadina's email address is there. You can write to her and she will mail you one.
Yes, absolutely. And you should be able to download and save it on your computer as well as a third option, but I know it's nice to have a printed copy. Okay, and also the training portal email address is right here again, so that if you have a problem, that's where you can also find that email address. I also encourage you to take a photo of it right now, or write it down or save it somewhere else so that you have it on hand. So as mentioned, we also have the Foundations toolbox right here. And then we also have this link which says announcements. So every single week, your trainer will be putting at least one announcement in here. It gets sent to your email address, but you can find all of the announcements here as well. So after you have completed watching this introductory Zoom makeup video, you will then want to log in and complete Module 1, Welcoming and Attuning to Your Child. You'll click on here and it will give you a drop down and show you everything that you're going to be going over. So the first one is the Module 1 forum. So this is where you will be posting. And you'll notice in all of the modules that every single time you will have a section where you'll post and answer some questions. So you'll want to make sure to complete that. The questions will be in there, and then you will add your post. And you'll also want to make sure that you are responding to other caregivers' posts during that week. Once you have completed the forum and the work that you need to do, it will then give you the Module 1 Zoom meeting link. So on the day and time of the class, you will go in here and you can click and this link will become live. So you can see the group that's going on right now. They had their meeting yesterday, January 15th from 6 to 7:45. This will not become live if you have not completed the coursework above. So make sure that you complete that. I strongly encourage you to do it sooner rather than later, so that you're not scrambling right before the class and then you can't get in, or you miss it or you're struggling with the link. So just keep that in mind. And then below, it will remind you what to bring to the next Zoom session. So this is what module 1 looks like. I am going to show you module 2 just because it has a little bit more in it. So in this one, before you get to the module 2 forum where you're going to be answering questions and posting them to the group, you'll have some work to do up here. So it says creating a safe home and managing challenging behaviors. It will then go over tips for tuning in. And so again, you'll click these, complete them. It will show a green check mark and you can move on to the next one. When you've done that, you've done your posts and responses, then this Zoom link will become live for you for the next Zoom session. So you will do that for module 1, 2, and 3. And then when you have completed all of those modules and you show up for your final Zoom session, your evaluation is going to be in here and will also become live. But again, you have to complete all of your modules and go to all of your Zoom sessions, and then this will be available at the end. At the very, very bottom, you will also have resources for your journey ahead. So that is what that looks like. Sharon, do you have any questions about that or anything that you think we should add to make sure folks can navigate this successfully?
No, I think you did a great job explaining that. And again, like if you have an issue, like some people are more comfortable with technology than others. So use the training portal, email for help, reach out to your instructors. And one thing I just want to reiterate, because this does come up, we don't have 24/7 tech support. And we also recognize that kin and foster caregivers are really busy and they're like, Saturday, I'm dedicating this time, or Thursday night, I'm dedicating this time. And if you run into a problem and you email the portal and you don't get a response, most people then contact their RC or their RRS and they're like, I made contact and I haven't heard. Please wait the 48 hours. And I know that's hard for you. It could be hard for you. But what happens then is the RCs or the RRSs reach out to us and it gets confusing about, who to respond to and stuff like that. And the other thing I want to reiterate is please give us your full name, because emails do not give us, like, so we might know what class you're in and where you are in the class, but if your email is little brown dog and you didn't tell us your name, we can't do any research ahead of time until we know what your name is. So thanks.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, and so when you're in class next time, since you're not able to ask questions right now, bring your questions to your instructor. Bring your questions to the class if you have any, and if you feel like you can't wait till then, to what we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now at the end of this session, Carmina. And so what we're going to ask you to do as a participant is think about what you are looking forward to most during your Foundations Network class. Our hope, we know that this is a required training, 1 year after your license, but our hope is that this course becomes something more to you than just completing a requirement. And so what are you hoping to get out of this? Think about it, like the participants who were able to make this session, we had this conversation in person, but definitely think about that and bring that intention and bring that energy with you to the next class.
Yes. Yeah, and before the next class, your homework is to complete module 1. So that's what I went over and shared on my screen. Make sure that you're completing the forum posts, that you bring necessary materials to class from your Foundations toolbox. And then again, that link will go live for your Zoom session. And so when it's time for class, log in, click the link, and it will bring you there. You may be in a waiting room until class starts, and that's okay. Just stay on that link. And again, try to log in sooner rather than later to make sure that you are able to get in and you've completed all of your coursework.
Carmina, are they supposed to bring something to play with also?
Yes, I
It's not written
believe.
here, but I think we do need that for the first session.
Let me just double check. Yes, for
Yeah.
the next
Right. And I think that the
Zoom.
online module reminds them to do that, but that may sound weird. Why am I bringing toys to class? But we are going to do some practice some child directed play techniques in module 1. So you'll need that as well. And you'll learn a little bit more about that on the online component.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.